The waiter led us to a corner table at the waterfront terrace, the kind of restaurant where chandeliers reflected on the Delaware River, and the bread cost more than most lunches. I could already tell my daughter Grace had gone all out for this dinner, her engagement ring catching the candlelight as she smiled nervously across the table. "Dad," she began, her voice soft and hopeful. "This is Travis. He wanted to meet you properly before the wedding." The young man sitting beside her extended his hand with the confidence of someone used to being admired. "Mr. Hale," he said, his grip too firm, his smile too perfect. "It's a real honor." "Likewise," I replied evenly, studying him for a beat longer than comfort allowed. Travis Reed was exactly what I expected: tailored navy suit, designer watch, the scent of ambition stronger than the cologne he wore. As soon as the waiter poured the water, Travis leaned back in his chair, exuding the kind of charm that needed an audience. "Grace tells me you're retired now. How's that treating you?" "Peaceful," I said, unfolding my napkin. "Gives me time to think." "That's great," Travis said, the corners of his mouth tightening slightly. "I hope I can afford to retire one day too. Right now, the grind never stops." He didn't say it directly, but I could hear it between the words, the unspoken "some of us still work for a living." Grace reached for his arm gently, a silent plea not to push too far, but Travis was in full performance mode. "I lead corporate marketing at Helix Dynamics," he said. "We specialize in predictive defense analytics, cutting-edge stuff." I nodded, pretending to be impressed. "Sounds like an important field." "It is," he said quickly. "It takes adaptability. You know, staying ahead of trends, being aggressive in the market." "Adaptability," I repeated. "That's the key to any kind of progress." The waiter returned for our orders. Travis didn't even look at the menu. "I'll take the Wagyu steak, medium rare, and the house Cabernet." Grace ordered salmon with lemon butter sauce. I closed the menu after a glance. "The soup and sandwich combo, please." Travis's eyebrows rose, and that smirk flickered again. "Just the combo?" "It's your daughter's engagement dinner, Mr. Hale. I'm fine with something simple," I said. "Of course," he said too casually. "Everyone has their own budgets." Grace's cheeks flushed pink. "Travis," she whispered, embarrassed. "It's fine," I said calmly, though I felt the remark like a slap. He thought he understood my life from one meal choice. "So," Travis continued, cutting through the tension, "what did you do before retirement?" "Oh, a little of everything," I said. "Engineering, mostly." "Interesting," he said with the faintest note of indulgence. "Grace mentioned you tinkered with machines and stuff." "Tinkered," I echoed. "Yes, I suppose that's one word for it." Travis leaned forward, elbows on the table. "You know, the world's changed a lot since your time. The competition's brutal now. Companies don't survive on loyalty, they survive on innovation. You either adapt or get left behind." Grace's eyes flicked toward me, pleading silently for patience. "I can imagine," I said. "Adaptation's always been a challenge for humanity." He laughed, misreading my tone completely. "Exactly. You get it. People your age usually resist change." My fingers tightened slightly around the water glass. "People my age," I repeated softly. "We've seen a few kinds of change." The soup arrived. It was tomato bisque, surprisingly rich and comforting. I took a slow spoonful while Travis explained his latest project at Helix. How he was modernizing the company's image and pushing for leadership positions. "I've increased our outreach conversions by 38% in just a year," he said proudly. "Numbers talk, right?" "Numbers always talk," I said quietly, "though they don't always tell the truth." He chuckled, oblivious. "You'd be surprised how many older folks in my company don't get that. Some of them still think networking is about handshakes. It's not. It's about power, connections, and momentum." Grace looked mortified. "Travis." No, he interrupted. "It's fine. Mr. Hale knows I mean no disrespect. I just think older generations had it easier. These days, you need to fight for every inch." I put down my spoon. "You think fighting for every inch is new?" Travis hesitated, sensing a shift but not sure where it was coming from. "Well, the world's more competitive now." "True," I said, meeting his eyes. "But I remember when we fought to get funding for ideas people laughed at. We built things that didn't exist before. We worked when technology couldn't yet keep up with dreams." Grace looked down, knowing I wasn't just speaking in theory. Travis smiled tightly. "Well, It's great you're keeping a positive mindset. Have you thought about consulting? Some companies might value your perspective. Perspective, I said. Interesting choice of word. I just mean, Travis continued. Someone with your background could still contribute, maybe in an entry-level mentorship role or something. My company sometimes hires retirees for advisory positions. I could put in a good word. An entry-level role. For me. I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded. That's very generous of you. It's all about helping others, Travis said, puffing up with self-satisfaction. Success means lifting those below you. You know? Grace forced a smile, mortified. That's kind of you, Travis. Oh, I can tell he means well, I said, taking one last sip of water. Travis didn't catch the edge in my voice. Exactly. I believe in paying it forward. The check arrived. I placed $40 on the table before he could object. That should cover my portion, I said. Oh, come on, Mr. Hale, I've got it, Travis said, pretending generosity. I insist, I replied. And thank you for the career advice. Grace started to speak, but I was already standing. Enjoy your evening, I said softly. Dad, wait. Relax, I said gently. I'm just tired. Long day. Outside, the Philadelphia night was sharp and cool. I stood by the river, the city lights flickering like distant constellations on the water. Travis Reed thought he'd just educated an old man about ambition. He had no idea the man he'd patronized had once built the very technology his company worshipped. As the wind brushed the surface of the river, I felt the first spark of a plan take shape. A quiet, precise plan that would show Travis what true innovation and true respect really meant. The drive home along Kelly Drive was quiet except for the steady hum of the engine. Philadelphia's skyline glowed behind me, steel and glass gleaming like an old promise I'd already outgrown. By the time I reached my neighborhood on the outskirts of Chestnut Hill, the city lights had faded into the soft gold of porch lamps and whispering trees. I parked in the driveway of my modest brick house, the one Grace always teased me for keeping too plain. That simplicity had become my armor. It told people like Travis exactly what they wanted to believe. Inside, the faint smell of coffee and cedar hung in the air. My study was just as I'd left it, a small sanctuary of framed patents, blueprints, and photographs no one ever asked about. Most people saw the clutter of an old man's memories. What they didn't see were 3 decades of engineering breakthroughs. I flicked on the desk lamp. Its glow landed on a brass nameplate that read, Atheron Systems, Founders Division. I ran my fingers over it. Travis's voice from dinner echoed in my mind. People your age can't keep up. I smiled faintly. He wasn't entirely wrong. Most people couldn't. But then again, most people hadn't built the systems that made the world keep up. I powered on my laptop. The login screen still bore the company crest. A silver orbital path surrounding a blue sphere. The same symbol, engraved on my cufflinks, locked in the drawer beside me. An unread message blinked from Elias Corin, the man who'd once been my partner, my closest friend, and the face of Atheron, after I stepped away 5 years ago. Martin, the Pentagon contract renewal's coming through next quarter. We'll face competition from Helix Dynamics again. They're trying to underbid. Same reckless strategy. Hope you're still enjoying retirement, my friend. But if you ever want to return, the door's open. They're nigh. Helix Dynamics. The name tightened my jaw. The same company where Travis Reed had just bragged about his modernized marketing vision. The same firm, now trying to steal what Atheron had spent 3 decades perfecting. I clicked open the attachment, Helix's public proposal, full of buzzwords and borrowed phrases. They were attempting to mimic one of our core systems, the Cobalt Guidance Suite, my design from 2008. Only their diagrams were wrong, dangerously wrong. It was almost poetic. Travis had mocked me over soup, boasting about innovation, not realizing he was selling a half-broken imitation of my own invention. I leaned back, exhaling through a humorless laugh. You couldn't write irony better than that, I muttered. On my desk sat a faded photograph, Elias and me in our 30s. Standing beside the first Atheron prototype. Behind us, a rented garage and an American flag taped to the wall. We'd started with nothing but credit card debt and a belief that systems could think faster than human reaction time. We'd built something the world thought was impossible. And now, a man who'd never held a wrench in his life was calling it luck. I reached into the drawer and took out a small velvet box. Inside were the original silver cufflinks Elias had gifted me the day our company went public, each one engraved with the Aetheron orbit, each one a promise. Never forget what we built. I hadn't. I'd just learned when to stay silent. The phone buzzed. A call from Elias. "Martin," he said, his voice warm and familiar. "I was just thinking of you." "Likewise," I said. "I got your email. Then you saw the Helix proposal?" "I did." Interesting choice of words they used. "Plagiarized, more like," Elias said. "They think if they slap AI terminology on old work, no one will notice." I hesitated. "Elias, you've got someone named Travis Reed in their marketing department?" "Travis Reed?" He paused, rustling papers. "Yes. Loud guy. Overconfident. Keeps talking about new directions and outdated dinosaurs. You know the type. I met him tonight," I said quietly. "He's marrying my daughter." The line went silent for a long moment. "You're joking." "I wish I were." Elias exhaled slowly. "That explains a lot. He's been bad-mouthing Aetheron for months. Says we're relics, claims Helix will replace us within a decade." I didn't think much of it. Just another salesman trying to sound smart. "He's more than that," I said. "He's arrogant enough to believe it." "You sound calm about this," Elias said cautiously. "Are you?" "I'm calculating," I replied. "There's a difference." He chuckled softly. "That's the Martin I remember." "What are you planning?" "For now, nothing," I said. "Let him keep talking. Let him build his tower higher. When it falls, everyone will see how hollow it was." "You're going to the wedding then?" "Of course. Wouldn't miss it for the world." Elias's tone lightened, but curiosity lingered. "Just don't make it too dramatic. I'd rather not be in the middle of a family scandal." "Oh, there won't be a scandal," I said. "Just an education." When I hung up, I opened my old project folders. The technical schematics for Cobalt guidance still sat there locked, patented, and under my name. The quiet reminder that every modern defense system Helix was chasing still bore my fingerprints. I clicked through pages of archived data, my own initials etched in every line of code. Every circuit trace. Travis Reed wanted to talk about innovation. Tomorrow, I'd show him what innovation really looked like when it was forged through decades, not PowerPoints. Before shutting down the computer, I printed a copy of Helix's proposal. At the top, in bold, the words, "Submitted by Travis Reed, Senior Marketing Executive." I folded the document neatly and slid it into a leather folder labeled, "For the Wedding." Then I looked once more at the photo of Elias and me standing in that cramped garage, two young engineers grinning like fools beneath the weight of a dream that actually came true. We'd built something that changed the industry. Something real. Something permanent. And in 2 months, the man trying to erase that legacy would be standing beside my daughter, introducing me as a retired nobody. I switched off the lamp. The room fell into half shadow, the silver cufflinks glinting faintly on the desk like two quiet stars. Travis Reed thought he understood success. He was about to learn what it looked like when it decided to speak. Rain streaked the window panes the next morning, a soft gray drizzle that turned the city into watercolor. I was pouring my first cup of coffee when I heard the front door open. Grace never knocked. She appeared in the kitchen wearing a beige trench coat, her hair pulled back, face pale and tight. "Dad," she said, setting her purse down. "We need to talk." The tone in her voice told me she already knew more than she should. "Coffee?" I asked, gesturing toward the pot. She ignored it. "Why didn't you tell Travis who you are?" I looked up slowly, feigning mild confusion. "Who I am?" Her eyes narrowed. "Don't play coy with me. I found the article in your study, the one from Scientific America. Martin Hale. The quiet visionary behind Aetheron Systems." I exhaled quietly. I'd forgotten that old magazine was still framed on the bottom shelf. "So," she said, crossing her arms, "you've been letting him think you're just retired. A man with hobbies. Dad, he made jokes about you being unemployed." "Yes," I said evenly. "He did." Her eyes flashed. "And you just sat there?" "I listened," I said. "It's amazing what people reveal when they think they're talking to someone beneath them." She sank into the chair opposite me, frustration mixed with disbelief. "You're testing him, aren't you?" I poured her a cup of coffee anyway and slid it across the table. "I'm observing him." "Dad, that's cruel." "No," I said softly. "Cruelty is belittling someone over dinner while pretending it's generosity." She stared down at the dark surface of her coffee. Travis isn't all bad. He's ambitious, driven, and blind. I interrupted gently. He mistakes noise for confidence. He thinks respect is earned through salary brackets and LinkedIn titles. Grace looked up sharply. You don't even know him. I know the kind of man he is. I've worked with his type for 40 years. She shook her head. You're judging him before you give him a chance. I smiled faintly. And what has he done to deserve one? The question lingered between us, heavy and unanswerable. After a long silence, she said quietly, He loves me. I believe that, I said. But love built on admiration fades fast when it meets truth. You need to see whether he loves you or the image he thinks you fit. Grace bit her lip. You're planning something, aren't you? I'm preparing clarity, I said. That sounds like a threat. It's a mirror. She pushed her chair back slightly. Do you want him to fail? I want you to see who he is before you marry him. Her voice cracked, more pain than anger. You can't control who I love. I'm not trying to. But I won't watch you walk blindfolded into someone else's vanity. She turned away, arms wrapped around herself. Outside, the rain beat harder against the glass, rhythmic and relentless. After a moment, she said softly, I knew about you and Aetheron. Even before I found that article. I remember the late nights, the notebooks, the news pieces when I was a kid. I just didn't understand why you stopped. I nodded. Elias told me to take a break after your mother died. He said I'd given enough. I agreed. So why hide it? Because sometimes silence teaches better than stories. She blinked through tears. What are you hoping to prove? That respect isn't transactional. That a man's worth isn't measured by his paycheck or how expensive his suit is. Grace sighed. You sound like Mom. I smiled faintly at that. She had a way of reminding me what mattered. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement at the window Travis's car pulling into the driveway. His timing, as always, was impeccable. Grace followed my gaze. He said he wanted to apologize about last night. Please, Dad. Just be civil. I didn't answer. The doorbell rang once, crisp and assertive. Travis stepped inside before I could reach the foyer. Mr. Hale, he said, wearing that same easy grin. Hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, I said, my voice neutral. What brings you by? He held up a garment bag. I thought we could talk wardrobe for the wedding. Grace mentioned you hadn't chosen a suit yet. I caught Grace's mortified expression, but I gestured for him to continue. That's very considerate. He walked toward my study doorway, his eyes flicking over the photos on the wall, the prototypes, the engineers, the government plaques. He smiled politely, seeing none of it. You have quite the collection, he said. You should really get rid of some of this old stuff. Minimalism's in now. I chuckled softly. I suppose nostalgia's a hard habit to break. He laid the garment bag across the sofa and unzipped it. So, this is what I was thinking for you, a dark gray suit, slim cut, simple but sharp. My boss is a stickler for appearances, and he'll be there. So, so I don't embarrass you, I finished gently. His smile flickered. No, that's not what I meant. But it's what you meant to say, I said, watching him shift uneasily. Grace intervened quickly. Travis, why don't you get the swatches from the car? Dad might like to see them. He nodded, grateful for an exit, and stepped back outside. The door shut. Grace turned to me, whispering urgently, Please don't humiliate him. Whatever you're planning, stop. I studied her face, the conflict, the love, the fear, and felt a deep ache I hadn't expected. I'm not out to destroy him, I said. I'm out to reveal him. Why can't you just tell him the truth yourself? Because truth is never loud enough when people are too busy talking. Let him speak. Let him build his picture of who I am. Then watch it crumble, under its own weight. She covered her face with her hands. You're going to break him. Then he wasn't built right to begin with. The door opened again. Travis returned with color samples, and that same bright, oblivious energy. Found them, he said cheerfully. Sorry. Bit of a downpour out there. I smiled and nodded toward the garden. It'll pass. Storms always do. Grace looked between us, her father, calm as still water, her fiancé, unaware he was standing in the eye of a gathering hurricane. She said nothing more as Travis launched into another monologue about color coordination and proper grooming for photos. I just listened quietly. Every word another thread in a web he was weaving for himself. When they finally left, Grace glanced back once at the window. Her expression said what her words didn't. Please. Dad, don't go too far. But I'd already decided this wasn't vengeance. This was protection. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the clouds hadn't cleared. Some storms don't end, they just wait for the right stage. And mine was only beginning. The next 2 months passed with the steady rhythm of preparation. Quiet, deliberate, invisible. To Grace and Travis, it probably looked like I had accepted my small role in their wedding. The aging father content to simply show up and smile for photographs. But every ordinary action, every call, every errand was a move in a game only I knew I was playing. Philadelphia in early June hummed with restless heat. By mid-morning, I was walking down Walnut Street toward a tailor shop that had served every serious businessman in the city for 50 years. Inside, air conditioning met me like a quiet cathedral breeze. "Mr. Hale," Armando greeted, his voice smooth as silk. "You haven't been in for a while. Retirement treating you well?" "Peacefully," I said. "But I need something new. Not flashy, something that says respect without saying a word." He smiled knowingly. "That, my friend, is my specialty." An hour later, I stood before the mirror in a charcoal gray suit, the kind of craftsmanship that whispered rather than shouted. The shoulders rested perfectly. The sleeves tapered like discipline itself. "It fits like memory," Armando said, smoothing the lapel. "That's the idea," I murmured. When I paid, he wrapped the suit carefully, slipping in a small box. "A gift," he said. Inside were silver cufflinks, simple and elegant. "I already have a pair in mind," I told him. "But thank you." The ones I had were locked in my study drawer, engraved with the Aetheron orbital crest. I'd wear them when the moment was right. That afternoon, I stopped by Faber & Sons Jewelers, one of the city's oldest shops. The clerk, a woman with keen eyes and practiced manners, placed a selection of velvet boxes before me. "Looking for something special?" she asked. "Yes. A wedding gift for my daughter," I said. "It should feel meaningful." She nodded. "A piece of jewelry, perhaps?" "Not this time," I said, choosing a black box lined with silver silk. "I'll handle what goes inside, myself." When she left to wrap it, I withdrew a certified check from my wallet, $75,000 made out to Grace and Travis Reed. The ink was still fresh. It wasn't about the money. It was about timing. The amount would draw the eye when the envelope opened. That evening, I visited the bank for final confirmation. My private banker, Jonathan Pierce, looked up as I entered. "Mr. Hale," he said, rising. "Still keeping things quiet. I see. I find peace in understatement," I replied. He scanned the check, raising an eyebrow. "Quite the generous gift. Do you want me to arrange delivery?" "No," I said. "I'll present it myself." He nodded respectfully. "Sometimes the gesture matters more than the number." "Exactly." The following week, I met with Elias Corrin at a private hangar near the Philadelphia International Airport. The space smelled faintly of engine oil and ocean air. Our company's jet, still bearing the Aetheron insignia, rested in the background, polished, ready, eternal. Elias stepped out from behind a maintenance bay, his silver hair swept back, his grin sharp and amused. "You look too relaxed for a man about to ruin someone's wedding," he said. "I'm not ruining anything," I said. "I'm preserving something that still matters." He laughed softly. "You've always had a taste for theater. So, tell me, what's your endgame?" "Clarity," I said. "For my daughter. For him. Maybe for you." Elias raised an eyebrow. "You know Helix's bid came through him? He's been bragging about new strategies to disrupt us. Their executives adore his confidence." "Confidence," I repeated thoughtfully. "The most dangerous thing to give a man who doesn't know his limits." Elias studied me for a moment, then said quietly, "You could expose him now, call his company, file for infringement, destroy him in a day. Why wait?" "Because public humiliation teaches faster than lawsuits," I said. "And this lesson will reach everyone who needs to hear it." He nodded slowly. "You want me there, I assume?" "At the wedding," I said. "He invited you himself, didn't he?" Elias smirked. "He did. Probably thinks shaking my hand will guarantee Helix a future contract." "Then you should shake it," I said. "Once." He laughed, full and deep. "God. I've missed working with you." We went over the details for half an hour, timing, seating, what to say, what not to say. When we finished, Elias clapped my shoulder. "You sure about this?" "More than anything in years," I said. "Let him have his audience. I'll bring the truth." That night, back home, I spread everything on my desk like evidence. The suit, the cufflinks, the envelope, the printed Helix proposal with Travis's name at the top. I placed the last one on top of the stack and stared at it for a long time. The arrogance in those pages was palpable claims of revolutionary optimization, modernized legacy systems. Every word a theft disguised as innovation. I picked up my phone and typed a short message to Grace. "Looking forward to the big day." She replied almost immediately. "I love you, Dad. Please, be kind to him." I stared at her message until the screen dimmed. Kindness, I thought, wasn't always soft. Sometimes it was sharp enough to cut through delusion. The next morning, I woke early and went for a walk along the Schuylkill River Trail. The sun rose like molten copper over the water, painting the skyline in quiet fire. I thought about all the years I'd spent building, inventing, believing in integrity, and how quickly arrogance could erase decades of honor in the wrong hands. At one point, a jogger passed me, earbuds in, oblivious. I envied him briefly, the peace of not knowing what others truly were beneath their polish. By the time I returned home, I felt calmer. The plan wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about balance. 2 days before the wedding, I took the suit to be pressed, the cufflinks polished. The tailor looked pleased. "You'll make a fine impression," he said. "Not yet," I replied, "but soon." That evening, I stood by my study window as thunder rolled distantly over the city. The storm clouds gathered in the east, black and vast. My reflection stared back at me in the glass, an old man, calm, certain, prepared. In the drawer beside me, the cufflinks gleamed faintly, waiting. Travis Reed thought he'd already won his future. In 48 hours, he would learn what it cost to build one. The Belmont Hotel shimmered with gold chandeliers and nervous laughter the night before the wedding. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be intimate, but Travis had turned it into a social showcase. Half the room seemed to belong to Helix Dynamics, his colleagues, investors, and a few polished strangers who spoke in metrics instead of emotions. I arrived on time, dressed in a navy blazer and open-collar shirt. Not the wedding suit, just enough to blend into the background. Grace found me first, radiant in a soft blue dress, her eyes betraying sleeplessness and restraint. "Dad," she whispered, hugging me tightly. "Thank you for coming." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. "This is your moment." Her gaze flicked nervously toward the far end of the room, where Travis was laughing with a group of men in gray suits. "He's excited," she said softly, like she was trying to convince herself. "Good," I replied. "Excitement makes people honest." Before she could respond, Travis spotted me. His face lit up with what I'd come to recognize as his public smile, a weapon disguised as charm. "Mr. Hale," he said, striding over. "You clean up well." "Thank you," I said. "You too." He clapped my shoulder in that patronizing way younger men often do to prove dominance. "Glad you made it. We've got a big evening. I invited a few colleagues, figured it'd be nice for them to meet family. Networking's everything, right?" "I suppose so," I said. He gestured around proudly. "You see that gentleman over there in the burgundy tie? That's Colin Rusk, VP of Strategic Development. And next to him," he lowered his voice, "that's Evan Moore, our regional director. They report directly to the Helix board." "Impressive," I said. "Looks like the company has quite the audience." He grinned. "Exactly. And tomorrow, my boss from Helix's main division will be here too, Mr. Darrow. Sharp guy. I want him to see I'm surrounded by the right kind of people." "The right kind?" I asked quietly. "You know, driven upward thinkers. People who get the game." "The game," I echoed. "Business," he said with an easy shrug. "You wouldn't believe how many folks still think hard work matters more than perception." "Do tell," I said dryly. Grace appeared beside us again, her smile a little too bright. "Dinner's about to start," she said. Travis offered me a seat beside him at the long table, but I chose a quieter spot near the corner. From there, I could see everything. The waiters moving with precision, the guests laughing too loudly, Travis standing at the center of it all like a man presenting a version of himself he hoped everyone would buy. He gave a short toast once everyone had their drinks. "Tomorrow," he began, raising his glass, "I'll marry the most wonderful woman I've ever known. Grace has made me better, more patient, more focused, more ready to build something lasting." Applause scattered politely. Then he smirked. "And I'll finally get to meet her father's boss tomorrow." A ripple of laughter followed, light but uneasy. Grace's head snapped toward him. Travis, he waved it off. Relax, babe. I'm just teasing. Mr. Hale's retired, but hey, he could probably still give me a few pointers about lawn maintenance or fishing. The table chuckled nervously this time. I smiled slowly, meeting his gaze across the table. You might be surprised what old men know how to build. Something in my tone made the laughter fade. Travis blinked, unsure if I was joking. Well, he said finally, trying to recover. I'm always open to advice. Are you? I asked, leaning back. Because the best advice I can give is to watch your words when you don't know the whole story. He forced a grin. Noted. Dinner continued, but the energy had shifted. Grace tried to fill the silence with small talk. But every word felt like walking on glass. Travis drank a little more wine than he should have, growing louder, more confident again, like a man who couldn't stand quiet. At one point, he stood, crossing the room to speak with his colleagues. I saw him gesture toward me, laughing quietly. I didn't need to hear the words to know the tone condescending amusement, the same one he'd used at the restaurant. Grace returned to the table, her voice low. He's showing off, Dad. Please, just let it go. I looked at her gently. That character isn't what people do when everyone's watching. It's what they do when they think no one important is. Good, I said. Then watch closely tomorrow. She hesitated, guilt flickering in her expression. Are you sure about this? Absolutely, I said. Every storm needs thunder before the lightning. By the time dessert arrived, Travis had regained his rhythm, charming his colleagues again. He even toasted me one more time, trying to smooth the awkwardness. To my future father-in-law, he announced, smiling broadly. A man who knows how to keep life simple. I hope I can be that grounded when I'm his age. Applause followed, polite and shallow. I nodded graciously, letting the moment stretch just long enough for him to think he'd won back control. When the dinner ended, guests began filtering toward the lobby bar. Grace came to hug me goodbye, her eyes searching mine. Please, Dad, she whispered. Be gentle. I brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. I don't intend to hurt him, I said. I just intend for him to understand himself. She swallowed hard, nodded once, and walked away. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of Travis near the doorway, boasting animatedly to one of his managers. His words drifted faintly over the clatter of dishes. Tomorrow's my big day, not just the wedding. My boss will see who I really am. I smiled to myself. Yes, I murmured under my breath, stepping out into the humid night air. He will. Outside, Philadelphia glowed and reflected gold from the streetlights. Cars hissed through puddles, and thunder rolled somewhere beyond the skyline. I walked to my car with the calm of a man who'd built his life on precision. Tomorrow, every piece would fall into place, every word, every look, every truth waiting to be seen. As I drove home, lightning flashed across the clouds, illuminating the highway ahead. The storm was on its way, and for the first time in months, I was ready to let it break. June 14th dawned clear and electric, the kind of summer morning when the air felt charged with something you couldn't quite name. From my study window, I could see the city waking up in shades of blue and gold. I took one last look at the suit hanging beside the window, the charcoal gray masterpiece Armando had crafted, and at the small black velvet box resting on the desk. Inside, the Etheron cufflinks gleamed, catching the light like twin fragments of a secret. By noon, the Franklin Estate gardens were alive with music and movement. White canopies rippled in the breeze. Rows of magnolias framed the aisles. Guests in silk dresses and tailored suits floated between champagne flutes and photo backdrops. Everything was perfect the way people imagine happiness looks from a distance. Grace was radiant in her wedding gown, her expression bright but taut with nerves. When she saw me, she smiled. That same fragile smile she'd worn since the night of the rehearsal dinner. Dad, she whispered, gripping my hands. You look incredible. You look like your mother, I said softly. Strong and beautiful. Her eyes shone. Promise me. Whatever happens today, it doesn't ruin tomorrow. I promise, I said. Today is just truth. Tomorrow will be peace. A knock on the door. Travis entered, already sweating slightly in his designer tux. There you are, he said, forcing cheer. Everything's on schedule. Just make sure to be ready when they announce you for the photos, Mr. Hale. My boss is here, and I want introductions to go smoothly. I wouldn't dream of missing it, I said calmly. He adjusted his cufflinks nervously. Mr. Darrow, he's the senior VP at Helix, arrived with the board. Oh, and someone said that Aetheron's CEO is here too. Corin? I didn't expect him to show up, but apparently he's friends with Darrow. Big opportunity for me to make connections. Is that right? I said, hiding a smile. Then you'll have quite an audience. He grinned, oblivious. Exactly. Everyone important in the industry's here. This could be huge for me. Then let's make it memorable, I said quietly. He nodded once, misreading my tone as encouragement, and left to greet more guests. The ceremony began under a pale silk canopy overlooking the lake. Grace walked down the aisle on my arm as the string quartet played softly. For a few minutes, the world held its breath. The vows were beautiful, honest, trembling with love. When she said, "I do," I believed her entirely. When he said it, I believed he wanted to. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the crowd erupted into applause. Cameras flashed, glasses clinked, and Travis leaned in to whisper in Grace's ear. "Everything's perfect," he said. "Even your dad behaved." Grace's smile faltered slightly, but she said nothing. The reception hall was an ocean of crystal light and soft jazz. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne. Outside, the sky was beginning to glow amber as the sun dipped low behind the trees. I stood near the bar, watching Travis work the room like a campaigner. He shook hands, laughed loudly, dropped names like breadcrumbs. His colleagues from Helix clustered around him, nodding with admiration. And then I saw Elias enter. Tall, silver-haired, still radiating that same quiet authority he'd had since the garage days. He wore a midnight blue suit and a smile that told me he knew exactly what was about to happen. Travis noticed him too. His eyes widened like a man spotting royalty. He nudged Grace and whispered something before crossing the room at once. "Mr. Corin," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Travis Reed from Helix Dynamics." "It's an honor, sir. I've been trying to meet you for months." Elias took his hand politely, his eyes flicking briefly toward me across the room. "Pleasure," he said, voice cool. "Congratulations on your wedding." "Thank you," Travis said, still beaming. "I'd love to talk about future collaborations sometime. Our company's doing big things, modern systems, faster AI integration, really shaking up the industry." "I've heard," Elias said lightly. "From a reliable source." Travis straightened. "Oh? May I ask who?" Elias smiled. "He's standing right behind you." Travis turned, confused, and found me approaching with a glass of sparkling water in hand. "Martin," Elias said warmly. "You look well." "Likewise, old friend," I said, shaking his hand. Travis blinked. "You two know each other?" Elias laughed softly. "Know each other? Son. We built Aetheron systems together." The words hit like thunder. Conversations around us began to falter. Travis blinked again, his lips parting. I don't understand." "You should," Elias said calmly. "He's Martin Hale, the man who co-founded Aetheron, the man your company has been trying to imitate for 3 years." The room went silent. Forks froze mid-air. Guests turned. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. Travis's smile collapsed. "You're joking." "I don't joke about work," Elias said. Travis looked at me, eyes wide. You built Aetheron?" "Not alone," I said. "But yes, from a rented garage, long before people like you learned to use the word innovation as decoration." The blood drained from his face. His colleagues, standing nearby, exchanged stunned looks. "Mr. Hale," one of them stammered. "We had no idea Travis never mentioned." "I imagine he wouldn't," I said. "He thought I was between hobbies." A ripple of uneasy laughter moved through the crowd, then died. Elias folded his arms. "Martin's being modest. He's the reason we have contracts with the Department of Defense. The reason Aetheron survived the last 2 decades. Every algorithm Helix is trying to mimic began in this man's head." Travis swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't know. Grace, I swear, I didn't." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "No, Travis. You didn't care to know." Walter looked around the crowd, his tone crisp and surgical now. "I'd been hearing rumors from Helix about a new manager there, young, confident, dismissive of the old guard. I didn't realize he was your son-in-law, Martin. That's an unfortunate coincidence." "Unfortunate indeed," I said, "especially since his department's bid used fragments of our old patents." I recognized the phrasing. Travis went pale. That was my team's Mr. Darrow's idea. Enough, Elias said sharply. Take responsibility, son. Don't hide behind your superiors now. The room was silent again, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Travis looked between us helplessly, face shining with sweat. Please, he said. I can fix this. Mr. Corrin, Mr. Hale, please don't let this ruin my career. I made a mistake. Elias's expression softened only slightly. The mistake isn't what you said. It's what you believed, that success gives you permission to look down on others. I placed the velvet box on the table between us. This was my gift to you and Grace, I said. But I think it serves a better purpose now. He stared at it, trembling. What is it? A reminder, I said. That humility is worth more than any contract. Elias rested a hand on my shoulder. I'll handle things on the corporate side, he said. He's learned enough for one day. Travis looked at me then. Desperation and shame twisting together in his eyes. I didn't mean to disrespect you, he said hoarsely. I just thought that I was no one. I finished quietly. He nodded, tears forming. Well, I said softly, now you know what it feels like to be wrong about someone's worth. The orchestra began to play again in the corner, a hesitant attempt to restart normalcy. Guests began whispering, moving back to their tables, pretending not to have witnessed the wreckage. Grace stood frozen beside him, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Travis reached for her arm, but she stepped away. I turned to Elias and offered a quiet smile. Thank you for coming, my friend. He smiled back. Wouldn't have missed it for the world. As I walked toward the balcony doors, I could hear the soft murmur of the guests returning to conversation. But the moment hung heavy in the air, impossible to forget. The sun was setting over the Delaware River, the horizon drenched in molten light. I stood there for a long moment, the wind carrying faint music from inside, feeling neither triumph nor regret, only clarity. Justice didn't always roar. Sometimes it spoke softly, in the stunned silence after truth arrived. The music inside the hall faltered again as Travis stumbled after me onto the balcony, the glass doors closing softly behind him. From here, the gardens of the Franklin estate shimmered under strings of golden lights, the reflection of the lake trembling with every gust of wind. Mr. Hale, please, he said, his voice cracking. You have to understand. I didn't know. I swear to God, if I'd known who you were, I never would have spoken to me like that, I asked quietly. He froze, guilt spilling through every word he tried to find. I was arrogant. I said things I shouldn't have, but I thought I was helping, giving you advice. I turned to face him fully. The once cocky posture was gone. The expensive tuxedo that had seemed like armor now hung loose, rumpled by panic. You weren't helping, I said. You were performing. You looked at me and saw an obstacle to your image. You measured my worth in money. Not meaning. He swallowed hard. I was wrong. Yes, I said. You were. The silence between us thickened. From inside, the muffled sound of glasses clinking drifted through the doors as the guests tried to pretend the world hadn't just shifted. He rubbed his face, the weight of humiliation pressing down on him. I've worked my whole life to prove myself, he muttered. My father was a nobody. I thought if I dressed right, talked right, worked harder than everyone else, people would respect me. Respect built on fear is a fragile thing, I said. The first truth that contradicts it makes it crumble. Tears streaked down his face, now real, uncontrolled. Please, he whispered, don't destroy me. Don't tell the industry. I'll never recover. I studied him for a long time. The man who had lectured me about ambition now trembled like a child afraid of his own reflection. Do you know what I find ironic? I asked. You claim to understand the future, but you never once understood the past that built it. He looked at me, confusion crossing shame. You work for a company that exists because two men in a garage refuse to quit, I said. One of them is still standing in front of you. We built systems that didn't just make money, they saved lives. You sell the results of that sacrifice like it's a PowerPoint slide. He dropped to his knees on the marble floor. I'm sorry, please. I'll do anything. Just tell me how to fix this. Behind the glass, I saw Grace through the crowd, her hands trembling at her sides, watching but not intervening. Elias stood nearby, speaking quietly to a Helix board member, his expression grave. I took a deep breath and reached into my pocket. The velvet box was still there, the one I had left on the table earlier. I opened it and took out the check, folding it once before holding it out to him. "This," I said, "was supposed to be a gift for you and Grace. But now, it will serve a different purpose." He blinked, confused. "You'll cash it," I said, "and you'll use every cent to pay back people you've disrespected. The waiter you embarrassed. The junior staffer you took credit from. Anyone you stepped on climbing your way up. You'll make it right." His voice trembled. "I will. I swear I will. If you don't," I said softly, "then I'll make sure the world knows exactly what kind of man you are." He nodded, clutching the check as though it were oxygen. "Do you know why I'm not destroying your career right now?" I asked. He looked up, eyes wet. "Because you're kind?" I shook my head. "Because I believe people can change. Because my daughter still loves you. And because mercy sometimes teaches louder than punishment." He bowed his head, his breath shuddering. Behind him, the door opened. Grace stepped onto the balcony, her wedding dress glowing faintly under the lights. Her expression was unreadable, half sorrow, half relief. "Dad," she said softly, "it's enough." "I know," I said. Travis turned toward her, his voice breaking. "Grace." She raised a hand, stopping him. "I heard everything. I don't need words right now. I need truth." He nodded slowly, speechless. Elias appeared at the doorway, folding his hands behind his back. "Travis," he said evenly, "I spoke with your boss. Helix won't terminate you for now. But you're suspended for 6 months. No leadership, no bonuses. If you want a future, you'll rebuild it from the ground up." Travis closed his eyes, relief and despair tangled in one breath. "Thank you, sir." Elias glanced at me. "You asked for mercy. I'm granting it. Let's hope he earns it." When Elias left, Grace stepped closer to Travis, her eyes red. "You'll need to prove everything you just promised," she said. "I will," he whispered. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving it." "Good," she said. "Because respect isn't a speech, it's a pattern." She turned to me then, her voice softer. "You always said storms clear the air." "They do," I said. "But they also show what's left standing." Her eyes glistened. "And what's left tonight? 2 people," I said quietly. "Who have a chance to build something honest, if they choose to." She nodded, took Travis's hand not in forgiveness yet, but in fragile hope, and led him back inside. I stayed on the balcony a while longer, the cool wind brushing against my face, carrying the faint echoes of a string quartet trying to reclaim the night. When I finally went back inside, people avoided eye contact. The illusion of perfection had cracked, and no one knew how to fill the silence it left behind. Elias raised his glass when I passed. "You did the right thing," he said. "Maybe," I said, "but the right thing doesn't always feel right." He chuckled. "That's why it's rare." The evening limped on. The music softened. Conversations turned to safer topics: weather, wine, the cost of weddings. From across the room, I caught a glimpse of Grace and Travis dancing slowly under the lights. Her face rested against his shoulder, not in comfort but in contemplation. He whispered something. She nodded faintly. And for the first time, I saw no arrogance in him, just humility. Sometimes, I thought, justice doesn't need applause. It only needs understanding. Outside, thunder rolled once in the distance, fading quickly into quiet. The storm had passed, leaving honesty in its wake. The morning after the wedding broke soft and gray, the kind of Philadelphia dawn where the city sounds seemed slower, as if the world itself were exhaling. I sat on the porch of my townhouse near Rittenhouse Square, a mug of black coffee warming my hands, the air cool with the scent of rain. The chaos of last night already felt like another lifetime distant, surreal, but necessary. On the small table beside me lay a folded newspaper and the velvet box that had survived everything. The Technova cufflinks, polished and gleaming like old truths rediscovered. I turned them over in my fingers, watching the morning light catch on the engraved initials. To anyone else, they'd look like simple jewelry. To me, they were the weight of 3 decades' struggle, triumph, sacrifice, and, finally, understanding. The door creaked open behind me. Grace stepped out quietly, her hair pulled back, her face pale but calm. She sat beside me without a word for a long while, our silence familiar, comforting in its simplicity. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked eventually. "Barely," she admitted. "Travis left before sunrise. He said he needed to clear his head." I nodded. "That's probably for the best." Her fingers fidgeted in her lap. "He cried when he left," she said softly. "I've never seen him like that. He said you gave him something last night? A check? I smiled faintly. A lesson disguised as generosity. She looked at me, puzzled. You still helped him? Even after everything? Grace, I said, turning to her. Your mother used to say that punishment closes doors, but mercy opens windows. Travis doesn't need another door slammed in his face. He needs a window to see what humility looks like. Tears welled in her eyes. You still believe in him? I believe in the possibility of people, I said quietly. But belief isn't forgiveness. It's an invitation to grow. She nodded slowly, wiping her cheeks. He said he'd write you. Apologize properly. I'd like that, I said. But even if he doesn't, I already got what I wanted. What's that? She asked. For you to see who he really was and who he could still become. The wind stirred the leaves on the street below. Somewhere, a church bell chimed the half-hour. The rhythm of the city was returning to normal. Even if our hearts hadn't yet, Grace took a deep breath. Dad, I was angry at you at first, she confessed, for testing him, for keeping secrets. But when I saw the way he treated you, when I heard how easily he judged, I realized you weren't testing him. You were protecting me. I reached over and took her hand. That's all I ever wanted to do. She squeezed back, her voice breaking. Thank you. We sat there until the sun broke through the clouds, slicing across the rooftops in thin golden beams. For the first time in months, I felt peace, not triumph, not revenge. Just the stillness that follows when everything false finally falls away. Later that afternoon, a delivery arrived at my door, a white envelope, hand-delivered, sealed with careful precision. Grace handed it to me. It's from Travis, she said. I opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter on helix letterhead and a small photograph our family from last night, caught mid-smile before everything unraveled. The letter read, Mr. Hale, I don't deserve your kindness or your forgiveness, but I owe you honesty. You were right. I confused success with superiority. I thought I could measure worth in achievements, when all along it was integrity that mattered. I've already contacted my team. I'm stepping down from management. I'm meeting with everyone I wronged and repaying them from the check you gave me. It's not redemption yet, but it's a start. Thank you for not ending me when you could have. You gave me a second chance to be the kind of man Grace deserves. Travis Reed. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Grace was watching me, nervous and hopeful. He means it, I said finally. She nodded. Do you think he'll change? Only time can answer that, I said. But remorse is the first honest thing he's ever shown me. That evening, as twilight painted the city in shades of silver and rose, I took a walk along the Schuylkill River. The water mirrored the sky, calm but deep, carrying its quiet reflections toward the horizon. I thought about the path that had brought me here from the cramped garage where Elias and I dreamed of algorithms that could outthink chaos, to this quiet porch where lessons about pride and empathy were still being written. Elias called as I reached the pedestrian bridge. I read Travis's email, he said. Seems your approach worked better than any boardroom reprimand. He'll either rise from this or let it bury him, I said. That choice is his now. You're still the better man between us, Elias said with a soft laugh. I'd have fired him on the spot. That's the easy part, I replied. The hard part is letting people rebuild. We talked a few minutes longer about work, about the old days, about how age doesn't slow wisdom, it sharpens it. When I hung up, the city lights had begun to shimmer across the river, like scattered stars. When I returned home, Grace was sitting at the piano, her mother's piano, playing softly. The melody was one I hadn't heard in years, something her mother used to hum while we worked late nights during Etheron's early days. It was imperfect, hesitant, but full of heart. I stood by the doorway, listening. When she finished, she turned to me and smiled. Mom used to say, she whispered, every storm leaves a clearer sky. She was right, I said. And sometimes, storms are the only way the sky remembers how to shine. She laughed quietly, wiping away tears. As the night deepened, I looked at the family photo from the wedding, one brief frame before the truth erupted. It was imperfect, just like us, but I decided to keep it on the mantle, not as a reminder of humiliation, but as proof that even broken moments could hold grace. Respect is not earned through titles, money, or power. It is built through humility, the willingness to listen before judging, to understand before dismissing, and to show mercy when vengeance feels easier. In the end, what defines a person isn't the size of their success but the depth of their humanity. As I turned off the lights and watched the city settle under its quilt of night, I whispered to the quiet room, "Mercy outlasts pride." And for the first time in years, I slept without the weight of unfinished lessons.